Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the newest installment of CANTO Conversations, our virtual updates on current and innovative strategies for the region. We're delighted you're here joining us today for an exciting topic with an illustrious group of panelists that we're delighted to present to you on the topic of innovative marketing strategies for the Caribbean. I'll be the moderator of the panel today. I'm Melissa Harris. I am the chairperson of the CANTO Marketing Committee. And by the way, I'm the CEO of Telecom Training Corporation. So I've been very involved with CANTO through the years, delighted that we're here today, and look forward to moving forward together with this great panel. A couple of different things we want to do. And first, just to give you a few housekeeping issues here. And first, feel free to type your comments and questions in chat throughout the presentation. And at certain points during the presentation, we may ask you to raise your virtual hand or your real hand if you want. And our wonderful virtual producer, Jimmy Rodriguez, who's the CANTO CFO, is going to unmute you. And this is really generous of CANTO. Not many groups do something like this, but at the end of our 90-minute presentation today, there's going to be a drawing for a $100 US Amazon gift card, but you must be present to win. That's the catch. So a couple of things to tell you about upcoming events. If you see this lovely picture on the side of the screen, that is the wonderful iconic Fontainebleau in Miami Beach. And that is where our 37th annual conference and trade exhibition is going to be there, July 17 through 20. We are so excited about Fontainebleau. It's such an iconic hotel in the history of the US and in the Caribbean. And so one of our panelists is the head marketing guru for the Fontainebleau. So you'll hear more about that in a little bit. We've got some new events coming up for our annual conference, and we can't wait to see you there at the Fontainebleau. On Sunday afternoon, we're going to have a chief marketing officer and a chief information officer peer-to-peer forum, Sunday afternoon. Certain caveats of who will be able to attend, but it's an opportunity for top-level executives to share their challenges in an environment with their peers, which they don't have the opportunity to do that often. So that's something really new that we're doing this year that we're excited about, to let our exhibitors and sponsors know, hey, we're going to have all these wonderful prime ministers, all these CEOs of all the companies in the region, but we're also going to have people that are going to love to see what you exhibitors have to show us and speakers that you're there for. During the main conference, we're also going to have a VIP chief marketing officer as a speaker. And then we'll have a welcome session Sunday afternoon. So a lot of new things happening this year at the CANTO 37th annual conference. We hope you'll invite your colleagues and exhibitors and sponsors that you know. And we want to thank our CANTO Marketing Committee, who has worked so hard to prepare today's event, as well as to do these new things for our upcoming annual conference and trade exhibition. So with that, why don't we go ahead and jump in what we're going to do today. We're going to focus on top of the mind market topics. And so a couple of things, it was intended for all Caribbean industries to rebound, ideas to rebound from what the challenges we've all faced in the last crazy 2 years. But we want to focus on what's trending in marketing, what's new and cool and innovative. We want to maybe look at some use cases on what's going on in the Caribbean ICT, information, communication, and technology space, hospitality and tourism. We want to talk about some cutting edge B2B, business to business, and business to consumer marketing strategies companies are using, and discuss your most pressing questions about marketing, sales, and communications. So we'll hear from our panelists, and then we'll have a good amount of time for your question and answers. So be ready, type them in your chat if you'd like to as we go through, or save them till we're ready to get into the Q&A. Who we're hoping was going to be here today, and as well as some of the events that we'll have at our annual conference in Miami in July: marketing, sales, business development. That's a fancy term for people in sales, right? Public relations, communications, but professionals in other functional areas, because we're all, as scandalous as it says, we're all in sales. We're selling ourselves every day. Sales and marketing. So it's great for everybody in other functional areas to be aware of all this, because marketing is what's going to take us to the future. It's a secret sauce. And so the four major benefits of marketing and what we'll be talking about today, we want to enhance the customer experience. We want to improve net promoter scores or customer loyalty, however you measure that. And bottom line, increase our customer revenues. So that's what our goal for today's event and what our goals at the annual conference will be at the Fontainebleau in Miami. So given that, we're going to move right into our panel with a set of discussion questions that they'll be responding to, a question and answer session to hear from you. Then we'll wrap up with hearing what did you find most meaningful, your ahas, the experience that you had today, what you want to take away and share with others in your organization. And last but not least, those of you who stay to the end of our 90-minute presentation will be eligible for the Amazon $100 gift card drawing. So with that as our agenda, here is the flyer that our CANTO team put together highlighting today's event, the CANTO Conversation, a marketing executives panel discussion on innovative marketing trends in the Caribbean. We have four extraordinary panelists today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves to you because it's kind of boring to listen to me like read a bio. So I'll keep their photos up as they introduce themselves. And why don't we start with Amber? And if you, as you all panelists are introducing yourselves, be sure to say where you're physically and geographically located. So Amber, how about you starting?
Sure. Morning, everyone. My name is Amber Carey. I'm the Senior Director for Commercial and Marketing here at Alive, which is a telecommunications company based out of the Bahamas. I've been in the telecommunications industry now for just over 15 years, and I've held various roles in product development, project management, operations, strategy, and marketing.
Oh, wonderful. That was very concise. Thank you. I wasn't ready. Okay, Josh, how about you?
Good morning. My name is Josh Sherman. I'm the Vice President of Marketing here at the, as you say it, the Fontainebleau, which I love it. That is actually the original way to pronounce it. So very glad to be here. I've been at Fontainebleau for 8 years. I've worked mostly in large historic hotels across the country, lived in California for many years, DC for many years. So excited to be here today and certainly look forward to seeing everybody here in person in July.
Okay, Clarence, how about you?
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Clarence Perry. I'm from Georgetown, Guyana. And I'm the marketing director of GGT. I've been in the telecom industry just 30 months, so I'm a babe in that respect. But I've been involved in sales and marketing for 31 years. So I'm not new to marketing, but new to the telco industry. Thank you.
Wonderful. Trajata, how about you? Wrap it up for our panelists.
Thanks. Good morning, guys. I am Trajata Maraj. I'm the Director of Marketing and Digital Services at Digicel, Trinidad and Tobago Limited. We're in telecommunications. I have about 15 years of marketing across the finance, telecommunications, education services. So in terms of breadth of experience, a lot of experience there. And I've been in Digicel for just over 3 years now.
Wonderful. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm Melissa Harris. I'm the CEO of Telecom Training Corporation. We custom design training solutions for telephone companies all over the world. And we've been so fortunate to work with all the operators in the region. Formerly, I was the head of Bell South Mobility or Bell South Cellular's training department for years, and then launched this company 25 years ago. And we have 800 trainers who've grown up in this industry, and we work on exciting all kinds of projects, typically for the frontline sales and customer facing teams. So that's why I'm the chair of the CANTO Marketing Committee and have been running marketing sessions at many of the CANTO conferences through the years. I see our wonderful board of director champion, Deisha Clifford, with her hand up here, and I bet we can unmute her and let her hear what she would like to say. Okay, her hand has gone away. She is in an interesting environment. She is in a courtroom right now. She's the head of Digicel in Trinidad for the regulatory environment, and she's in a courtroom right now trying to juggle being here with us today, because this was part of her mastermind plan for us having this panel today. So we'll see when she can jump in and chat. Okay.
I just wanted to say welcome, Melissa. Thank you, everyone. I just wanted to say welcome. And I was actually just applauding the panelists. I'm looking forward to a great session. Thank you again.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. She covered my blunder for not noticing the difference between the hand and a wave. So thank you, Disha. Okay, let's get started then. I thought we'd start with kind of a broad kind of where we are in the whole big picture here. In terms of a lot of things have changed in the world as we're now embarking on creating a new normal within our organizations. And in 2 years, a lot of things have really changed. So let's talk not just about marketing for a moment, but in terms of the big business. What are some of the major challenges that are facing our industry and your company? And Josh is kind of in a unique situation since he is representing our venue for July, but he'll be talking about things from more of an entertainment, tourism, hospitality perspective and how that meshes, because all of us in the communications industry want to make sure that his industry succeeds with our solutions. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you're seeing that's unique after this 2-year interesting era? Josh, can I kick it off with you, please?
Sure. And thank you. That's a great question. I'll touch on it in 2 ways. I think the biggest challenge in all of the hospitality environment right now is staffing and finding and attracting and keeping the right types of talent. We have really changed how we look at the types of people we hire. We've engaged with a company called PI, which is a predictive index, and their job is really with a motto that in the hospitality industry, you can find somebody and you can teach them how to run a system, but you can't teach them to smile. You can't teach them to be warm and empathetic and welcoming and really care about guests' concerns. So we've spent a lot of time over the past really year in trying to map out what certain positions and certain roles in this business look like and who are the ideal types of people that can slide into those roles. So one is really hiring, and the other it's staff retention. So we are actively and heavily engaged in building a strong culture here, in ensuring that guests that our employees and team members are heard, and that they have a path to really grow and succeed and be challenged and make sure they're in the right roles. So the staffing part of it and finding talent and hiring talent in the hospitality business is by far a number one challenge. When it comes to the guests in the business, and this isn't, it's not really necessarily a new thing. We did see it pre-pandemic where, it's all about experience, and people want authentic experiences when they travel. There's a reason companies like Marriott and Hilton are incredibly successful, but there's also a part of the industry that I love where you're an independent hotel. You can really grow and create your own unique experiences that are authentic to this market. So, some of it is generational. We hear about the Gen Z traveler, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. And, they want to feel like they're connecting to the town that they're traveling to, and that they're really getting something that they couldn't get elsewhere. So, we've spent a lot of time, money, and effort to create authentic experiences here. I think there's a few questions when we talk about what's changed over the past 5 years, and I'd love to highlight a few of them then, but really just making sure that you're providing value and being authentic to who you are is what everybody, is looking for these days.
Excellent point. Thank you. And what's so similar about that is we're all in businesses, right? And we need to attract customers or guests, and then we need to keep them. And whether it's a EX, an employee experience, or a CX, a customer experience, very, very similar about the loyalty involved in that. So I think we all share that in common. How do we attract and retain customers, employees for the future? Thanks for kicking us off, Josh. Trajata, how about you adding a little bit to that on what's kind of the new normal business challenges that we're facing right now?
Thanks, Melissa. So what we've seen happening over the last couple of years is that the customer behaviors and their needs have been so fast-paced. The changes to what they want, the changes to how they behave, has been a lot of fast-paced changes happening with the customer groups. And on the B2B side, you're seeing a lot of concern around cyber attacks and protecting data. And with us moving so strongly into digital over the last couple of years and driving like a digital first type engagement for customers because of what happened with the pandemic, as a business too, we have to make sure we protect our customer data. So on the one hand, you have to look at how you protect your B2C customer data. And on the other hand, you have to look at your B2B customers are now more concerned about cyber attacks. Digital Business, as an example, we did a survey of about 2,000 customers across the region, 2,000 business organizations across the region. And there were a number of companies who reported increased concerns about cyber threats. So as we move into being a more digital region and a more digital organization, these are things that we've seen change. The customers are changing a lot quicker than they used to. And the concerns around how you protect data, both from a B2B perspective and B2C perspective, has also increased.
Excellent point. You all have both kicked us off so beautifully talking about authenticity, attraction, retention, and now security. You know, we kind of mentioned that at the beginning of our Zoom call of why kind of we got the cameras off and everything. Darn these bad people in the world, right? But makes us stay on our toes and be creative and innovative. Clarence, how about you telling us a little bit about how you view the business challenge, especially since you've kind of come from another background and you're applying that now in our ICT telecom world?
Yeah, well, one of the things I've seen since the pandemic is that the customer is less tolerant of service issues. They expect a lot more in terms of value, what the company can provide, and they demand the best of service. And I believe that is one of the things that help, I think, companies recognize that they need to become more customer-centric in their approach, because the customer is more informed. The customer is also, aggressively seeking to ensure they get value for money. So in a competitive environment, that's one of the things to retain your edge. You really have to be looking and understanding what the needs of the customer are and ensuring that you're in tune with those needs. And that to me is one of the things I've seen trending right now, especially in Guyana.
Excellent point. And we work with lots of tier one, big operators all over the world. But we also work with, in the United States, for example, small rural telephone companies. And it's so challenging for an environment at which I compare a lot to the Caribbean, where you have a lot of wealth, a lot of non-wealth, and people coming and living their part of the year and leaving, but they're demanding the best technology. And how we have enough people in the country to be able to pay, to give us the best. So it's challenging because we can't make a technology poor decision, without some really significant ramifications. So the customers are demanding more, they're more impatient, they're more likely to, hop to a competitor, and it's a lot cheaper for us to keep them, right, than for them to hop somewhere and then hop back. So thank you for that. I think we got everybody to kind of kick us off on that. Wonderful.
Sorry, Melissa. Amber.
Oh, Amber, my goodness, I'm looking at my list going, I know I've missed this. So Amber, wrap it up for the Bahamas for us here. Thank you very much.
No problem, because I do want to kind of jump off of what Clarence said. And so I'd say there's two things that kind of been a challenge, and they kind of were escalated post 2020 and pandemic. The first is the shift in product mix in the telco space. So 10, 15 years ago, we had a trifecta of products we could sell the customer: voice, messaging, and data. Over the last few years, we've seen a decline kind of in that voice and messaging demand, and even greater post 2020 as things shift digitally. So although there's been an increased demand for data, we've also seen two strong revenue streams slowly decline, and we project that to continue, right? And data will be the core product most telcos will provide in the future. And so the challenge is how do you offset that? Because the customer appetite to pay so much more for that data to offset our revenue loss is not necessarily there. And so what we're challenged with is introducing new products, things like connected home and IoT, to kind of supplement that value that the customer expects from us. And then also just to continue to grow the business. I'd say the second challenge, and you kind of just touched on it, Melissa, is all this new technology. And the challenge that telcos and fixed businesses are faced with is essentially that we have to make the investment in the infrastructure to support all this digital kind of evolution that has to occur. And so, a lot of especially I think, Clarence and Trinidad could kind of agree with is Caribbean countries are challenged with this 5G investment we need to make over the next few years. Yet we don't necessarily have all the industries some of the big telcos across Europe and the US have. So things like manufacturing, healthcare, automation, and transportation, we don't necessarily have those. We have a finite amount of customers that have a finite amount of purchasing power, yet the new technology we're seeing requires significant capital investment. And the challenge we have is to determine, okay, when do we make that investment? How much are we going to invest in it? How are we going to monetize that investment? And then do we have the skills to deploy that investment? And so I think, once again, it's a challenge, but the opportunity we then is, okay, we've got to pivot. We've got to be innovative. We're going to still be asked by our customers to offer 5G, especially somewhere in the Bahamas. We're so close to the US. They consume a lot of US media and advertising. So the expectation is that we deploy things like AI and connected products and machine learning. Yet, do we have the kind of capital investment? Can we make it? And how do we ensure we get an ROI on that investment?
Brilliant summing up, Amber, with all the challenges going on there. For example, later this week, I'm going to Las Vegas to the Rural Broadband Association's Smart Rural Communities, where for smaller telcos in the United States, what are they going to do about cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, as they try to compete with fiber, giving them the network capabilities foundational that they need so that they can compete against the big operators. And that's one of the things when I tell people, come to the Caribbean, because everyone in the Caribbean is watching either European TV or US and seeing what the T-Mobiles and AT&Ts and Verizons are rolling out. And they're going, well, what's the problem? Why can't they have it here? Well, they don't understand all, what's involved about deploying fiber and the network and all that kind of thing. Just like, for example, if Fontainebleau has spent so much, many millions of transforming the hotel. So we're all in the same kind of boat. What we have to invest to meet our customer needs, it's a tricky bottom line there. And that's why we need our financial wizards helping us with that. Josh, do you want to say a little bit more about, I mentioned the investment the Fontainebleau is doing lately?
Sure. Well, we have been investing here heavily in things like Wi-Fi so that we can add additional services across the landscape here. One of our challenges is really where we put those dollars most effectively, and we have debates here all the time on really what the customer wants and how they get the best use of it. And the most basic example is, there's a lot of customers that want to get a text message and open their, a key on their phone and go right to the room and bypass the traditional services of a hotel. And those are, there's companies providing that right now. They have been for years. And it kind of goes against our hospitable nature of wanting to welcome a guest and smile and, invite them back to the resort. And so we're sort of weighing, a lot of the kind of modern demand for technology and trying to put technology first in everything we do with the hospitality side of our business. So there's a lot of things we've put in place. We've spent several $1 million in upgrading our Wi-Fi system across the property so that we can install some of those new things over the next year. But it's a constant question, and we really look at everything we do and how we can put the technology first based on what we're hearing. Guests want to go to a guest room and they want it to feel like home, where they can stream their own content, they can watch their own shows, they can use their own devices. They when they travel, they want all those comforts of home, but you have to be able to invest in those systems to provide it. So that's one of the challenges and a lot of where our capital dollars are going here.
And coupled with that, as you're doing all that, then we've got the bad guys that we've got to take care of from a cybersecurity perspective too. And that opens up another can of worms. That kind of ties into something Amber had mentioned earlier about how Gen Z becoming the largest cohort of consumers, and what are companies needing to consider when marketing to them. And I think we just heard how Fontainebleau's dealing with that, wanting to bypass the normal reception thing. And baby boomers, we want to go in and chat to the people at the front desk. So now we have more generations in the workplace than ever, and they all kind of want different things. And how in the world are we going to exceed all of their expectations and still deal with all the money needed to do that? So Amber, do you want to tell us a little bit more about the Gen Z strategies?
Yeah, I think so. Gen Z is going to be the largest, or is now the largest cohort of consumers. And they are the first generation to grow up in 100% digital environment. And so they don't know the world without digital and technology. And one of the things we know about them is they spend a majority of their time in the metaverse now. So they are very acute with how social media and digital should work. And their expectations from companies now are they expect them to also know how they work. And so, I mean, I think there's two things when I think about the Gen Z group. One is they have a high expectation of the fact that companies and brands now should be very digitally savvy and be able to talk to them where they are. And so their expectation is you're going to find them on social media platforms most of the time. Their attention span is very short. And so we know that they can only absorb so much at so much time. And I think they have like crazy short attention span of like 8 seconds that they look at any advertising before they move on. They also expect to trust a brand. And so one of the differentiators is that I think, and progressive companies understand this kind of cohort of consumers. And one is they meet them where they are. So you now see iconic brands like Gucci have a TikTok account, where they probably never expected that they'd have to embrace something like TikTok or Instagram or YouTube to capture the kind of next generation of consumers. And the second thing is they leverage a lot of consumer reviews. And I think that their peer-to-peer, kind of their trust is in their peers. And so I think progressive companies really embrace that, and they leverage their consumers as now they're kind of their advocates. No longer these generation of consumers, they go on, they see a product on a website, they look at the picture, they look at the description, but the first thing they go to is the reviews by other customers. And so their trust, and you see that with the evolution of Google reviews and Yelp, and it's very a peer-to-peer kind of marketing that's taking place with that consumer group.
Yeah, Melissa, I just want to add one thing to that. Amber makes some great points when she talks about wanting to trust the brand. They may trust the brand, but they really don't trust the advertising typically of the brand, at least in a traditional sense. One of my favorite things here is to look at what some of these progressive companies are doing on TikTok. Look at Duolingo as an example. They take this green owl, right? That's their mascot, and they make funny videos of it, and they're watched by millions and millions of people. I think their most popular one has 30 million people that watch a 10-second video to music with a dancing green owl. So, how we're getting more creative in our marketing and our messaging, and it kind of goes against the old nature of marketing, where you want kind of a blinking ad, screaming at you with your best offer and your best product, and you really the change in just being authentic and being fun and being entertaining and doing those non-traditional things. I would encourage you to follow a company like Duolingo. It's really just amazing the things they're doing.
Yeah, and to Josh, to add to that is, I think this group of cohorts are also pushing companies to take a stance on social issues. So now your brand has to incorporate values to it, right? They want to, they want to know what a company's stance is on things like environment and climate change and race. And they want to see campaigns that have a plethora of different people in it with, different races, color, disabilities. And so I think this generation, the Gen Z specifically, are also pushing companies now, they're going to their websites, they're understanding kind of what are their position on these key issues, because they want to, they're going to use their dollars wisely and kind of put their money kind of where their values are.
Yeah, they are letting their dollars speak on how how they want brands to act. You know, we're going through a process here where we're trying to sorry, just one quick thing, try to eliminate all the plastics from the pool deck, but that's not an easy process. And we've purchased 4 scooters to be able to manage and distribute and pull everything off the deck and wash it and put it back, just to eliminate, you know, several tons a year. So I would encourage everybody to look at what their customers want from a social and environmental aspect as well.
Great
Yeah,
point.
and I think,
sorry.
Melissa, if I could just add, when you look at it for Gen Z, to just build on what Amber was saying, these guys are the digital natives. These guys are the ones who will be your Instagram users, your Twitter users, your TikTok users. They value authenticity. As Josh had mentioned earlier as well, they value authenticity. And when you look at how brands stand behind a value system and how they exhibit the value system that they support, it can't be that we support something because every other company is doing it. It has to line up with the brand values themselves in order for this generation to actually believe the value system that you're talking about or what you're supporting as a brand. So you have to be authentic to your company, you have to be authentic to your brand in order for them to trust and believe in it. And then it's a video first culture. Static ads no longer make sense. It has to be video first. Quick videos, convey your messages, convey what you want to be able to say, but it has to be a video first type approach to your marketing now. And one of the things that we found worked a lot as well is using micro-influencers. So your macro guys, they were fine. They reach a particular market segment. They hit a particular audience segment. But really, you have to also look at your micro-influencers, because your micro-influencers will be the ones who will reach all the different Gen Z customers, all the different pockets and the niches. And you have to be able to sell an experience. You're not selling the product on the basis of the product itself anymore, but you have to sell the experience that that customer can now enjoy. Really, when you look at it, this generation is stimulating a lot of marketing innovation for organizations. You have to change and modify how you do things, and you can't just go to what would have been the standard traditional way of marketing anymore.
Excellent. And what did help me understand when you were talking about macro versus micro? Can you say a little bit more about that?
So when you talk about a macro influencer will be the one like the celebrity, the music star, the pop star. Those guys will reach mass segments, they'll reach mass audiences, but they don't necessarily resonate with a Gen Z. A Gen Z micro-influencer will be a smaller guy, maybe somebody who's into gaming or somebody who's into photography, or some of those smaller micro-influencers, smaller community, but more value in terms of the reach and the authenticity of the reach.
Great point between the micro and macro there. It's so funny. I was thinking with Amber being in the Bahamas years ago. Yes, Clarence, I haven't forgotten.
Yeah, I just want.
I was just going to say Bahamas, though, real quick, that years ago, the Bahamas, there was a company still there in the Bahamas that they were wanting to be more progressive with marketing. But one of their leaders was going, you can't, because the marketing team kept going, we want funny ads. And as a baby boomer, he was going, no, we can't be funny. We got to be serious. And so it seems now the cartoons, the green things. In fact, we had Kimberly from SATAR on our marketing committee developed this cool little cartoon snazzy thing for the annual general meeting for us a few months ago. And I think some of the old guard baby boomers were like, ooh, that's a cartoon. It's funny. And it's like, yeah, and everyone loved it. So it's like, for those of us that have been around a while, we got to get used to all this new cool stuff, the micro, the macro. And also studies have shown now people need to be touched, not 6 times, not 8 times, but 14 times before we get their attention with these short attention spans. We have Leona on our marketing committee too, an absolute agreement that authenticity is key in building your brand and that you are selling an experience. Thank you, Leona. Clarence, you want to take us home about the Gen Z and what's going on when we're marketing to them?
Yeah, well, I wanted to follow up on a point that Tricia made, Sujata made, very good point. In terms of the whole aspect of authenticity and credibility of advertising. And for Gen Zs, I think one of the things you have to focus is, telling compelling stories, using videos as really to connect with your values and with the community. And with the micro influencers, I think that's where you can have that connection and speak to those stories that really resonate with your values, and the values of the Gen Zs. And I believe once you do that, and you can build that connection and loyalty with them. So it's not just the typical advertising that we did in the past, which was product centric. That's not going to work. You got to tell compelling stories that really speak to the daily lives and what they experience. And that is where you build that connection.
And I think just to add to that, and back to Strata's point of the micro influencers, is we don't always have to create the content, right? These micro influencers create specific brand content, so content to your brand, but that then speak to that kind of cohort that they are looking at with their peers. So we're no longer just generating all the content. That's user-generated content by those micro influencers. And then that means the gamer is speaking to a gamer in a language that he can understand. That means the photographer is using language and, highlighting features of the product they're selling to their audience. And so it allows you to get a greater reach than at just a regular macro level with a big influencer or a big sports star. You now specifically are speaking strategically and tactically to that audience.
Yes, and it takes a lot of time and effort and money to do all this, doesn't it? It's just, there's a whole lot. That's why we're having to attract new folks on our sales and marketing teams as we embrace all this, because if you want to show up and do all this cool video stuff and the macro and micro, have that all being handled on all the social media platforms, that takes a lot of resources. And so I think some of the newer companies, for example, I think of Digicel being a little newer in the Caribbean, though they've been there for 15 years. GTT's been there about 100 years. Alive in Bahamas, you're one of the newer players in that role. Of course, the Fontainebleau has been there a while. So I think we've also got to look at, our heritage. When we've been around a longer time, it's like the Titanic, shifting it to do things differently versus if you're new, you hire a bunch of people all excited. So there's a little different from a competitive marketing strategy in the Caribbean region, as we're all friends here, but there is competition in the ICT telecom space in the region, and we're having to respond in that way. Well, boy, what a wonderful conversation about these Gen Zs. We love them. Ironically, as a baby boomer, I totally believe in what the Gen Zs are doing and winning authenticity. And oh my goodness, recycling and the plastics. Josh, we're so thrilled with what you're doing, the plastics. I think just as baby boomers, we never said it out loud. We put up with stuff. And now the Gen Zs are going, we're not putting up with stuff. We want this. And I think some of us baby boomers are going, go, 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 go. We're all behind you. So still very complicated. Let's see, Clarence, you had expressed interest in talking about the current marketing trends in the telecommunications industry. So I wondered if you'd like to kind of kick us off there as we talk a little bit about that. In addition to what we said.
Well, I think one of the things that we've seen in Guyana is as I mentioned earlier, the customers are demanding greater value. And they just want their lives to be simplified in terms of the services we provide. So one of the things we've done is to shift or try to digitize, where we've moved away from paper billing, and now we're using WhatsApp billing to really ensure that the customers get their bills on time. That was one of the frustrating things to customers in the past, is that they were, their billing information, they were concerned about that, the time they receive it and the accuracy of it. So we are now able to deliver to over 70% of our customers their bills via WhatsApp. And, more and more persons are converting to that. The other things that we want to do, what we are doing is providing easier payment solutions to customers. And we have mobile money, which provides that platform for that. You know, customers are, as I said, demanding better quality services. So we're moving away from copper DSL, copper lines, and moving to fiber, and that's rolling out. And as customers get that experience, you know, they're less likely to make complaints or, you know, be frustrated with the quality of service they have. So those are some of the things that we've seen. And as you know, Guyana, since the discovery of oil, you know, more and more persons are, you know, in terms of the income levels are improving, and they're therefore can afford better packages of services. And on the business side as well, there's a similar response in terms of what businesses are looking for. They're looking for, you know, the ability information to be simplified, and you know, and we're now offering those type of solutions packaged with our broadband services. So those are some of the developments we've seen in terms of trends. And we expect that would only increase or intensify as Guyana develop further in terms of where we're going in terms of the oil industry and the influx of revenue, as well as persons coming to work in Guyana with the background and expectation they would have in other territories. They're bringing that, and obviously they will want to have those services available to them. And, you know, that is driving the company to respond. We've shifted the way we did business in the past. We are now more a customer-centric organization, and everything we do is with the customer foremost in mind. And that's been our approach strategically as well, operationally as well as marketing.
Yes, there's a lot going on to do all that, isn't there? And which is a little unique with your country in comparison. It's similar to Trinidad in terms of oil, but in other parts of the Caribbean region, the tourism has been such a #1 economic driver. And with the last 2 years, that's affected them significantly. And with the oil, the oil, I would think that hasn't had as big of an economic impact on countries like Trinidad and Guyana. Would you agree, Clarence?
Well, I think Trinidad has a slightly different challenge. I think their resources may be dwindling. So they might have a little different economic challenge, whereas ours is booming. So for example, we are expected to have GDP growth rate of around 47% this year, which is significant in terms of when you compare to other countries in the world. It's a significant jump in terms of growth rate, probably one of the strongest in the world. And as a result of that, obviously it will create some, well, rapid changes and what people expect in terms of services. And as people incomes increase, obviously the demand for services will. So, you know, there's a lot to do. And as you mentioned in your discussion earlier, it also requires that companies now have to make significant investments to be able to provide those services and the quality of services that the consumer will expect.
Yeah, that's interesting. When the last time I was in Guyana a few years ago, the Marriott was the only hotel there. It was lovely, but I'm assuming with this kind of growth rate, other hotels are popping up. The Fontainebleau might want to set up a satellite location there. It sounds like with all this growth rate you're having.
Yeah. You've seen, actually infrastructure development is a lot is happening right now. And we expect there will be several international hotels currently under construction, and you know, more will be coming on stream. So yeah, to answer that, yeah, you're correct. It's gonna revolutionize in the way people do business in Guyana, and obviously it's going to be, I mean, just think about this. We're less than 1 million people, right? And we are probably approaching the top 10 in terms of oil production. So you could imagine what transformative economic impact that will have for a small nation like Guyana.
How exciting. Well, since we talked a little bit about oil, and how about Trajado? Would you like to talk a little bit about what's going on from an economic perspective in Trinidad and how that's affecting your marketing strategies there?
Sure, no problem. So when you look at it in Trinidad, coming out of, well, during the pandemic, we saw a shift in the consumer behavior and consumer demand, right? We had persons who, in a short space of time, had to move from going out to work into hospitality industries being shut down. All the hospitality industry and the entertainment industry took the biggest impact in terms of persons now being out of jobs for 2 years. Trinidad's only recently reopened the economy. With the reopening of the economy, we've started seeing a recovery. There's still a long way to go in terms of having the economy rebound or get back to a certain level of operations. One of the things that we've done at Digicel though is with the changes in the customers' behavior and the changes to where the customers were now consuming data and where they were now consuming services, we invested in building out the network in different areas throughout Trinidad and Tobago. And we spent a lot of time making sure the network was up. We gave quality service, reliable service. So we invested a lot to make sure that customers had what they need, when they needed it, and where they needed it. Now, that also impacted our customer care element, because on the customer care side of things as well, we shifted. One of the things that I'm pretty proud of with Digicel is within a matter of 2 days, we were able to shift our operations from in-office, be present type operations into a virtual environment with no impact to business operations or anything from a customer perspective. Customers didn't know that we even had a shift. And what we did on the customer care side is we incorporated a lot more digital channels. We made it a lot easier for customers to access us, not only on social media, but also live chat and all the different tools that customers could now reach Digicel or reach customer care if they needed to. So we invested a lot to give customers services when they needed it. And we invested a lot in terms of bringing our customer care up to a digital level. What we've seen happen really has been the digital transformation or the speeding up of the digital transformation, not just of our organization and the marketing function within the organization, but also all of the other businesses that wanted to be able to now earn revenues and still be able to generate some level of economic stimulation over the 2 years. They've all depended a lot heavier on network capability and capacity and being able to use digital services a lot more. So it's really seen a lot of digital transformation of the marketing function and organization operations as well. And it meant that as a marketing organization, we had to be a lot more responsive. We had to be a lot more agile in terms of how we turn things around and what we do from a marketing perspective to be able to reach these customers. As the economy reopened as well, we're seeing that shift happen again. And once again, we're looking at making sure we're agile and we're changing our strategies to be able to give customers what they need from us.
Excellent. So being agile to support the digital transformation and changing the processes and procedures instead of what works best for us as a company, it's what works best for the customer. Talking about WhatsApp, I know that's such a popular app in the region. And so using that, as Clarence was mentioning, for billing. So thank you for clarifying that, Trajada, about what's going on in Trinidad and Tobago here. And we had a question from Brandon. Brandon said, what would the panel, let's see, the purpose of the, okay. What is the purpose of the platforms that the Gen Z loves, like TikTok, given that there is no direct conversion point? Or what about utilizing paid advertising to segment and target? Since we've just been talking about the Gen Z, that's kind of a out of the blue thing. How about Josh or Amber? Which one of you want to grab that one here?
So I can start, and Josh, if you want to kind of jump in. So the first thing is, I think is, so a lot of these social platforms now are presenting conversion opportunities, right? And I think, there's crazy stats, like a lot of Gen Zs, 80% of the way they interact with brands now is completely digital. And so now you no longer have to see an ad, research that ad, go to a website, and then transact, right? Now that digital e-commerce is completely tied into a lot of these programs. So on these platforms, so you can go to Instagram, you can see an ad, shop here, and you can make that conversion right there. I think the other thing that we haven't touched on yet, and I'm sure we'll get to it, is just the amount of data, right? So we now, and especially as telcos, sit on a lot of customer data. I think we talked about it from a privacy perspective, but we haven't talked about how we can strategically use that to market to customers. And essentially what happens now is you have a lot of these MarTech solutions that allow you to kind of dissect, segment your base, understand the messaging, when do they shop, where do they shop, what message gets to them, and then you can actually measure your ROI and your conversion rate. So a lot of these platforms are now allowing us, no longer are we just creating these big campaigns, we're putting out, big ads, and then kind of just watching the sales come in. We can watch and pivot immediately. We can, put out an ad, we can see the engagement. And I think, there was a kind of a question there on paid versus organic. I think you need both. You need the ability to kind of boost the messages you want, but you also want just organic growth of your content as well. And so I think these social platforms have definitely helped, although maybe the baby boomers have been slow to adopt in some areas. They're going to continue on. And I think, the data is going to be critical, as I think, marketing was always seen as an art. You kind of lead these artists to create these campaigns and these ads, and it's kind of got that Mad Men feel. And now marketers are more scientists. They're looking at data and they're starting to kind of segment their base and be really tactical and strategic. And so, as directors of marketing and CMOs, we're now actually being driven by revenue growth more than just brand elevation.
Focused on revenue growth versus brand elevation. I love that. That captured it beautifully. Wonderful. Josh, what do you think?
Sure. No, I mean, that's a great answer. And it's very applicable to everything in the marketing world. I think, so many of these companies have really integrated that one-click, purchasing funnel, right? So everything you see really has that quick option to burn it, to buy it. The paid versus organic side is an interesting one, is those lines have really disappeared in a lot of things, especially in social media. You really can't differentiate between sometimes what is paid advertising and what is really an organic message that's being boosted, that's being shown in front of you. That's where a lot of those influencers come in that we talked about previously. All of the targeting capabilities on these social platforms are really amazing, but they're also very expensive. It is very expensive to get your own content shown, and that's one of the challenges, that you can create great content, you can push it out organically. If you want to be on Facebook and Instagram, if you're not paying to get it shown, nobody's ever going to see it. I think it's, there's studies that say 1% of your content will get seen unless you pay to boost it. So, that's one of the things, like emerging platforms, even though it's pretty widespread by now, like TikTok, is their ad platforms aren't as robust as Facebook or, and Instagram, meaning it's cheaper, in part, but you also don't have the high level of targeting down to customer interests that you would in some of the other platforms. So, the model for us here, is to create great content, to have people create great content on our behalf. And then you have to really invest in making sure it's seen. It's become harder and harder for brands to drive organic growth in all of their content. So, we certainly invest heavily in trying to get our own message seen in social.
And I think that's, you know, you're right, Josh, because there's a lot of noise now. I mean, social creates a lot of noise. And then you've got these consumers that have this really short attention span. And so you're continuously trying to kind of weed out all that white noise that's around your ad campaigns and your content. Yet with a consumer who just needs to look at a video really quickly, doesn't have, you know, any desire to go any farther than that. And so it's kind of this balance. It's a challenge, but it's an opportunity, you know, so you still have to get creative. You kind of have to merge it with the science.
Yeah. I mean, there's data that says, you know, before someone books a hotel room, they've looked at 50 websites, right? Whether it's pages, whether it's travel sites, whether it's TripAdvisor, Expedia, your Instagram page, whatever it is. So trying to creatively sort of surround them in all of the areas that they like to be is really is one of the biggest challenges we face here.
I bet. Well, I don't have that much time when I'm traveling every week on business. I just go to one that I know. So it looks like the B2B market would be, you know, a little less worried about people shopping at 15 other hotels, because I mean, if you all were part of the big chain, I'm sure I'd be part of you, but I'm a Marriott, you know, I stay in the historic hotels of Marriott, and it's just kind of straightforward like that, except I love the Marriott in Guyana, by the way. Trajana, what you had mentioned, one of the things that was important to you, given the speed of change in consumer lifestyle and behaviors over recent times, how has a business kept relevant for your customers? And you've alluded to several things. I just wondered if there was anything else you wanted to call out regarding that.
Yeah, I think when you look at it, in order to be able to stay relevant, you have to have a robust marketing research framework. You need to be able to stay on top of changes. Now, you could monitor changes from your customer base via responsiveness to ad sets, responsiveness to pieces of content. So you have natural organic data and research or information that you could get just from your digital advertising and your social media actions, right? But you also have to have a program of research to look at understanding what customers like, what they don't like, how has their behaviors changed over the last couple of years, how have they changed, how have their needs changed. So it has to have a robust program of marketing research. You have to also look at how you add value for your customers. And you add value not just via your products and services and the value from your products and services, but coming back to being able to tap into Gen Z. Our digital foundation's been an integral part of what we've been doing in Trinidad. We've used the foundation to now invest in the communities and invest in Trinidad and Tobago. So not only are we doing investments in network and technology, we're doing investments in the people via events and sponsorship. You're going to look at investing in things that matter to your customers as well. Cultural investments, supporting the customers where they need the support the most. So all of those things have helped us to maintain the brand love that we have. Because when you look at marketing now, marketing is a combination, right? You have your short term or your short tail impact, and then you have your long tail impact. So your brand values, your authenticity, being able to support the community and the customers that you're operating within, all of that adds to your long tail benefit as a marketing organization. When you look at how we've sort of held the ship steady over the last 2.5 years or so, the investment that we've made in culture, the investment we've made by the foundation, the investment that we made in the network, building out a strong community management framework to help manage the customer interactions on social media, working very really closely with customer care to make sure we have a cohesive voice and we have a personalized tone of voice on social media and the social media channels with customers as well. Because that also has to change. You need to be able to address the customers in the manner that they need to be addressed. It can't be a typical call sheet that you work off. It has to be customized communications. We've used all of those things, and really when you look at making those changes, we've moved our NPS. If I look at us over the last 2 years, we've moved our NPS from positive 35 pre-pandemic to positive 60 as at the last wave that was done in May. And it's been strategy, it's been making sure we focus on the customer, it's been making sure we support the customers where they need to be supported. So when you look at how we've kept relevant, it's been a lot of focus on what our customers want from us.
Oh, that's wonderful, though. We've all known that, though. We want to do what the customer wants, but really historically, businesses have developed systems and internal processes and procedures that makes it easy for the business to run the business. And it's like it's turning us on our head where we're finally going, okay, we got it. Focus on what the customer wants. And there's two customers, we all know, the external customer who buys our stuff and the internal customer, our employees, right? Because it's just took us off with about we got to hire them and we got to keep them. Same thing with the external customer, same philosophy. Wonderful. I think we had another question. Thank you very much for that. Amber, you had mentioned how has the role of the CMO changed over the last few years? And I think with all the things we've been describing, you know, from being an artist to a scientist and the research and all that. Tell us a little bit about that, and you and everybody else on the panel, y'all just jump in when you want to after she finishes here.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we look at it, you know, prior to, you know, all of the data that we now can access from a consumer, right, that we can sit on, and especially as telcos, we sit on quite a bit of data because your mobile device is kind of your kind of the center tool that you use to connect your entire life. I think, you know, the role of the CMO, as I mentioned, really has gone from, you know, getting collaboratively all these artists together and these creative minds together. And, you know, back in the day, it was really, you put these big campaigns out, right? What, you know, how can you make the splashiest move from a advertising perspective in terms of commercials and billboards and kind of your point of sale merchandising. And that doesn't necessarily mean that that goes away. But now we have, you know, now I think the CMO have to, there's an expectation now that you also have to ensure you're growing the business. And those campaigns can specifically be now monitored and measured to understand if they are doing that. And so I think marketing teams now are just not expected to be creative. They're also expected to be able to understand data. You know, was that ad receptive? Did that work? Did you drive conversion? Did you drive traffic to a certain channel? Did you drive digital adoption? Are we seeing the shift where we are? And, you know, creative minds don't necessarily always just adapt to data. And I think the role of the CMO is kind of to tie those in, the creative and the analytical, because now we can analyze so much. We have all these data points, you know, 1% only see this and 10% do that. And what does that mean? And you're finding that I think the CMO role also now has to incorporate a lot of marketing technology. So not only do you need to understand data and you need to be creative, you also now need to ensure you're adopting these digital tools that allow you to create good, engaging content and also measure it. And so the shift really is just kind of the skill sets required from a CMO perspective. And I think there's now more just on brand elevation, which I think is still there and still core to what we do. It's also, you're there to drive revenue growth and additional revenue streams. And now we can truly measure whether or not what we're doing is working, which I think makes CFOs very happy.
Yes, wonderful. We should probably invite the CFOs to be a part of something like this. We will keep that in mind as our little CANTO marketing committee about what we need to do. But that's, as you were saying that, I was going, oh, there's got to be, we've been mentioning working closer with customer service. We've been talking about working with sales. We've been talking about working with the technology teams, our infrastructure group. So it looks like all the changes are forcing us to be more collaborative, interdepartmental. Gone are the days where we can live in our own little silos and not even know who lives over there. You know, even though we've been with the same company for X number of years, now we got to play together and know each other.
Yeah, I think, you know, the marketing P&L is always the one, the first to get cut sometimes. Because, you know, finance doesn't always necessarily think that, you know, we get very emotional and we, you know, we start to advocate for, you know, doing all these complex, complicated, targeted campaigns. And now, you know, we have the tools and reporting to kind of show, you know, why they're important, why we need to be in the community. You know, 2020 showed us that people now are, and the Gen Z are very particular and focused on where they're purchasing power. They want companies that are local. They want companies that support communities in there. And so that brand differentiate is so important. And I think it's just a marry of skill sets that the CMO needs now that they traditionally didn't need in the past.
Great point. And I think one thing that's kind of interesting, I think our chief financial officers got so excited when NPS was rolled out, because it was like, oh, we can now measure something, maybe, you know, just a simple question. You know, they wanted a number, because for marketing and sales, we've always gone, oh, yeah, we really can't measure some of this. I just want to mention that before they cut marketing teams, they cut the training department. So I'll just say that. Okay. Clarence, Josh, and Sujata, what do you all want to say to build on what Amber's just said here? And then we'll open it up for a group discussion, questions from everyone attending today.
I think I agree with a lot of what Amber said, and just to build on that as well, as CMOs, we now the customer champion. I mean, we were the customer champions before, but now it also means that in terms of driving the technical, driving product, driving customer care, driving digital services in the case of apps and the customer experience on the apps, we really are customer champions. We have to look at what we do as an organization to resolve any points of customer dissatisfaction. We're customer value officers. We're a strategic tool that basically unites all of the different departments across the organization. As Amber was saying as well, we have to be balanced between data-driven and being analytical, as well as being creative and innovative, because we still need to bring the creativity and bring the innovation so that we reach different customer segments. And it really puts us in an ideal position to drive a lot of, like, what I would call, and I go back to this again, but the digital transformation of the business, and being able to now look at strategy, look at innovation. How do we create things that help us to meet the needs of our customers? How do we do things differently? How do we add value for the customers? And really key, and especially coming out of the last 2 years, really key is the ability to be agile. We have to move from one major campaign during the course of the year, or 4 major campaigns during the course of the year, to now I might have 4 campaigns a week targeting different segments, using different media channels and different channels to be able to reach those segments. I'll be supporting 10 to 12 different product objectives and commercial objectives with my campaigns. So when you look at it as CMOs, we really now have to be very agile. We have to be very strategic. We have to be very analytical, and we have to be very focused on your corporate objectives, your revenue objectives, and what we need to achieve as a business as a whole.
And I think that's a great segue to why the title now is CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. It's not the marketing directors necessarily. Well, I mean, it's not marketing managers now. We've got an executive titles now for our marketing people to elevate that, because we do need a seat at the C-level to talk to people like that. Yes, wonderful. Clarence and Josh, anything else you want to say about this before we jump in and ask our attendees?
Well, I just to Jata's point, I think the task or job of a CMO is becoming increasingly challenging, and I think because of the demand to ensure that you have a very good return on your investment, the ability to measure what you do is so important now. And I think as CMOs, you know, it's someone spoke about the scientific aspect of it. You have to do more evidence-based marketing now. It's not just throwing stuff at the wall and hope some stick. It's about being very strategic in what you do, ensuring that you have a very good understanding of your target audience, or your customers who you want to target, or those persons you want to target, using that data to really analyze that data and segment, so that you are very strategic in your marketing approach, so you get the best bang out to your dollar that you spent. So, you know, it's that balancing act that the CMO has to do now that is becoming increasingly challenging.
Balancing act, great way to sum it up. And Josh, you want to finalize our comments on this topic?
Sure. I love the phrase that Trajata used. I think it was the customer value officer or the chief value officer. And, you know, what shifted in my career in at least in the hospitality business is you know, the old days, somebody would create a product and then they'd hand it to the marketing guy to go promote, right? And now I think we've all kind of merged into a variety of roles where we're really at the forefront of creating that product, creating that programming before it goes to market, right? So you're sort of tied in from the start to see if it, you know, not if you can sell it, but is this the right thing to go sell? Will our customers want this product? Are we, you know, giving them what they're asking for? And then are we putting it in the right channels to be successful? So I think it's just the confluence of like a little bit of everything. And I look at who I spend my time with from a department head standpoint here, and it has changed more in the last several years of who I'm interacting most, from the financial, you know, team to our customer service team to, you know, really just the programming team, and how are we making, you know, Fontainebleau stand out and give people a product that they want, versus, you know, there was a point in my career, it was like, all right, here it is, go sell it. And you're like, well, maybe this isn't the right thing for us to sell. So it's an exciting time, I think, to be in this industry for sure.
I think it's an exciting time to be in the industry, exciting time to be in marketing, exciting time to be in technology. And I think we're all very, very fortunate that we're here today. And thank you all for being here today, all of our attendees too. I'm sure you have gained, I've been typing frantically in chat just because I wanted to save the chat and summarize what we've done here so that we can share this with the CANTO membership. But in terms of attendees, who has the first question? We've allocated the rest of our time for question and answers from you all to put our panelists on the spot for non-prepared types of questions. So I have to admit, we've asked a lot today that we really hadn't discussed asking. So they've been agile and on their toes as marketing leaders here. Okay, attendees. Oh, by the way, if you're looking at some of the people, you see that there is a little icon that says 37th. And the theme for CANTO's annual conference ties into everything you all been saying, enabling the digital evolution. So as we keep talking about data, CANTO is so spot on the way they're orchestrating everything for their experience at I'll change my pronunciation, Fontainebleau in Miami in July. So it's going to be focused on this digital evolution because it's affecting every functional area of the organization. I love the way you talked about how marketing is now the hub, you know, in the center, coordinating everything together like that. Okay, who has the first question? Brandon, wonderful. Kick us off. Jimmy,
hey everybody. I kind of put it in the chat before, but I'll just read it out here. Given that credit card penetration across the Caribbean is relatively small, anywhere between 5 to 25%, how does the panel or people who operate within the Caribbean space, we spoke about tracking return on investment or return on ad spend or return on anything for that matter. Given that credit card penetration is that small, how do you all navigate actually determining what actual revenue is taken from marketing spend, given that only you may even get a fraction of that 25% of credit card expenditure being taken place within your different products?
Excellent question, kind of a prioritization focused question. Who on our panel wants to run with the ball on that question?
So I think just in terms of credit cards, and I think, yes, throughout the Caribbean, you know, we have a low penetration of credit cards, and that becomes a challenge when you're trying to drive digital adoption, right? Because digital channels are less expensive to run than traditional bricks and mortars. And so what we've seen here in the Bahamas is the advent of a lot of mobile wallets that allow you, companies starting to, you know, set up that allow you to have these mobile wallets and use these digital payments, but not necessarily have to go through a traditional bank. And so, at Alive, we're starting to partner with these because we see them as a gateway to allow people that, not necessarily have access to getting a credit card and have bank accounts, but we're also want to have access to our digital platforms. And so I think partnering with mobile wallets companies has been one of the ways we've kind of seen 10 plus percentage points increase in digital adoption over the last year. As we have the same challenge in the Bahamas with low adoption rates on credit cards. And so I think that's, not sure if Trinidad and you guys see the same thing in Trinidad, but we see an array of mobile wallets popping up in the last 2 years.
Yeah, that's certainly a key area. Particularly, I know I was working a lot with Safaricom in Kenya years ago when they were the biggest operator in the world, enabling people to access the money, more of a wallet, a mobile wallet environment. And it's like, I've been wondering why it's taken so long for us to do more, but now we got to get the banking and financial institutions involved, and that creates another can of worms here. Trajata, you're nodding your head. Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, so we are seeing a lot of attempts at mobile wallets. Some of the challenges in Trinidad would be the regulatory environment and the central banking regulations to be able to get those things to really penetrate the market. When you look at being able to monitor return on investment for marketing and conversions and all of those things, I think one of the things, and it comes back to marrying data with strategy and your marketing initiatives, right? We've been able to successfully build out that customer journey and that conversion point. So while you might look at a completed sale if you do an online transaction with a credit card as one point of return for your marketing investment, you also have to look at things like the amount of leads that generated. And remember as well that for different products, it will be different because some have an immediate conversion point that you could generate via a payment through debit or credit card. Some also have longer lead time, so a longer lead to close sale time that you have to monitor as well. But when you look at things like how you drive your leads through the funnel and the number of leads that you generate, when you look at things like campaign lift and understanding what happens to your revenues if you run certain campaigns and during a campaign cycle versus a non-campaign cycle. All of those are ways too that you could monitor effectiveness of your strategies as well and effectiveness of the different campaigns. The beauty of digital and social is that it's easy to track conversions. And then on the flip side, as economies reopen and people are now back outside, we use a phygital approach, which is a combination or a hybrid physical digital type execution, where in our physical executions, we're using a digital element so that we're able to better track it. So all of those things will now help us to build a really solid case, especially when we go in front of the CFOs saying, hey, this is the value that your marketing dollar will bring to the organization.
Excellent.
And I think you can, to that, you can just you can start in one channel and end in the next, right? So doesn't mean you have to have a credit card to be on digital. I can book an appointment in store, I can book to buy something, but then I can go in and close that transaction. So it's that merge of kind of offline, online, and that, the customer just needs to see it as all one channel. It doesn't matter if it started on a chat or on an IVR or with the call center or online. I can, start in one, end in another, and it's just a seamless kind of experience for the customer.
Correct.
Excellent. Okay. Any other questions from our attendees today? Thank you, Brandon. Don't tell me we have a shy group today. Okay, usually the pregnant pause gets some results, but I'll give up. How about, oh, Brandon's got it. Is Brandon clapping? Yes, thank you. He's clapping and raising his hand both. Brandon, do you want to say something again?
Yeah, I was actually raising my hand. I selected clap by mistake. No. Given that we talk a lot about Gen Z. In terms of Gen Z, what are you thinking is for the panel in terms of targeting Gen Z? Is it that we are looking to build a customer lifetime value with these people, because they're not at the stage in which they are actually purchasing, because they exist within that 13 to maybe 21 age range? Or what is the thinking behind utilizing Gen Z more so from a revenue generating standpoint? I understand the awareness standpoint for the product, but in terms of a revenue generating standpoint, what is the focus for targeting Gen Z?
What panelist wants to run with the ball on that?
I could probably say this. I think for us, especially on the mobile side, it's about, influencing. They do influence the purchases in terms of handsets as well as the use of data. And therefore, they're a very important target segment. And also to build brand loyalty, because those are going to be eventually become the next, or be the foundation in the next couple of years of the purchases that will be made. So it's starting early to get into that group. But the important point now is that they do have an influence on purchases, though they may not be the ones doing the purchasing as yet, but they can influence purchases. And also, because they're active on social media, they do have an impact in terms of how people perceive the brand. So it's very important to cater for that segment.
Excellent point. I think we have to balance the short-term results versus the long-term. And boy, I don't know about you all, but I thought that our panel did an extraordinary job. I thought the topics were so interesting and diverse. And why don't we give them a big round of applause? Thank you so much for you all. Here comes the applause, clap things here. I kind of miss this togetherness, but that's okay. We'll all be together at the Fontainebleau, July 17th through 20th, won't we? Okay, so I'm going to share a screen, the PowerPoint here. As we've just heard, again, Trajata, Josh, Clarence, Amber, unbelievable presentation. I think I've got the other, let's share another screen, PowerPoint slideshow. Well, it's not wanting to do that. So I will just tell you what we're going to be doing now. Now we are going to ask you for what are your ahas? What was, type in chat, if you will, what's the one major thing you're taking from the presentation back to your organizations? What really resonated with you? You went, oh, wow, what a great point. I've tried to capture some of the brilliant points our panelists made in the chat. Feel free to, while you're typing, I tell you what, Levi and Brittany have been so sweet to have some questions that have been posed. My concern is we're about at the end of time. Levi's question, with the shift to digital transformation, what considerations are taken into consideration with the cybersecurity threats? How do we trust e-commerce? There's a lot of workshops coming up on cybersecurity. We will be addressing that at the CANTO annual conference in July 17th through 20th at the Fontainebleau. Brittany, trying to raise my hand, considering the consumer mix of Gen Z and baby boomers, what is essentially the plan to bridge the gaps with the future? Darn it, we have to do it all. We have to do what everybody wants, somehow find the money to do that. And it's a tough job we all have here, but I'm confident we are going to persevere, and there'll be great new ideas awaiting you July 17th through 20th at the annual conference. Sandra is commenting on agile marketing was her big takeaway. Yes, we are agile, agile, agile. I do yoga to stay agile. It is so important. Any other takeaways you want to type into the chat? We've got 2 minutes oh, Levi, the presentation was well received. I'm new to the ICT space, definitely looking forward to staying at the Fontainebleau and hanging out with us all in July. We're going to have a lot of really cool things waiting for you there. And so that's what we have now. Disha, Teresa, in the last 2 minutes, is there anything Teresa Wankin, the Secretary General of CANTO, or Disha Clifford, our wonderful board champion, would like to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to our panelists. Thank you to Melissa for doing such an excellent job moderating. And thank you to our listening audience. This was a fantastic session. And I'm really excited for July. You've teed it up in a lovely way. We have a first, as Melissa mentioned, a session on Sunday that's exclusive to CMOs and CIOs. We're really excited about it. We hope to see all of you there. Thank you to everyone.
Okay, thank you, Disha. And I want to echo Disha's sentiments. Thank you to the panelists. I've learned so much from this CANTO conversation. Would you guys believe this is our 50th CANTO conversation? So it's a milestone for CANTO. And it's also the last one for this fiscal. We started CANTO conversation to provide information for our members during the pandemic when we couldn't meet face to face. It was meant to deliver niche topics for our members and for our stakeholders. And you guys really delivered a really good conversation this morning. It makes me feel to be a marketer. I want to go into marketing now. I want to change profession. But you guys were really good, and I look forward to continue discussions with you. I hope the attendees can take some of what you learned here today and incorporate it into your own marketing plans and use CANTO as a platform for more information. You can talk to us. You can form like your own networks among these marketing. You're free to come and join our marketing committee. We'll welcome you. You will get more ideas like this, more conversations will be had. And of course, as Melissa and Disha said, join the CANTO family, show the CANTO brand some love. That was one of my takeaways, brand love, getting people to love your brand. Trajata, I love that. And come and show us in Fontainebleau some CANTO love. I'm sure you will not be disappointed. You'll have much more topics like these for discussion. So thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. We appreciate this, and we'll look forward to seeing you in Miami in July. Thanks again. Take care. Bye-bye.